Hello, everybody. I am Levi with the Veritas 21 podcast, and today I have a very special guest with me, my mother, and we are going to be talking about adversity. How are you doing, Mom?
I'm doing good.
That's good. You want to introduce yourself?
I'm Kim. I'm Levi's mom. Levi's my baby of 7, and I work part-time. I create half-time, and the rest of the time it's family.
What do you create?
I primarily make stuffed animals, pillows, quilts, but anything you want me to make out of your fabric of somebody that you want to remember.
Yeah, and you've been doing that now for a couple years. And,
I started 3 years ago.
yeah, and it's Stitches of Remembrance.
Yes.
So, yeah, she takes different clothing and stuff like that from maybe lost loved ones or ones that are still alive and makes a teddy bear or maybe a pillow, or sometimes even she does t-shirt blankets. And how has that gone for you? Has it gone pretty well?
Pretty crazy, actually. I feel a little overwhelmed sometimes because I have been consistently having orders. So
Right.
Kind of a lifelong dream to have this kind of business. So I feel like I'm on the road.
We'll start off today's conversation with just a couple questions I actually had in the live last night as I was trying to promote this and get more people to come onto the live tonight. And I kind of want to know what your background is like. What was your home life like growing up?
I was pretty much raised in a single parent family. My parents divorced when I was 9, and within 6 months I was in foster care because my mother couldn't take care of the 4 of us. And so my oldest brother and I was the oldest of the girls. There was 4 of us, went into foster care. And then I moved to California to be with my dad, and then moved back to Missouri, and then moved to Kansas. Just moved around a lot and never went to the same school more than 2 years in a row until I was into high school. So my father was a very angry man, so somewhat physically abusive and verbally. And my mom was very timid but bitter and resentful. So that's kind of the environment I was raised in.
Yeah. And do you feel like a lot of those things may have hindered you throughout your adult life and in your perception of life and how to rise above some of those experiences?
Sure. I mean, I came into adult life with a very low self-esteem of myself and not thinking that I was really worth a whole lot. So I struggled with that, and I portrayed that more in an anger way, like my dad, instead of being quiet and
because that's what you were showed, right?
Yes.
You were showed that when I'm emotional, whether that's pain or that's anxiety, fear, it exposes itself through anger.
It was explosive. So yes.
Right. And I would say, being raised in your home, I probably witnessed that a little bit, right?
Yes, you did. Luckily, you witnessed the latter part of it instead of the first part of it. I was getting better by the time you came around, but I was never I felt like my anger was okay because it wasn't as bad as my dad's.
Right.
So I excused it because I thought my dad did a whole lot worse things than I did. So I felt like it was okay.
So some of those experiences, you developed anger from that. And how did you rise from that? How have you adapted to overcome the anger that you experienced because of those experiences?
Primarily because I went through one divorce, remarried, and went through another divorce, and I was probably right about 42. I was sick of me. I mean, I kind of hit a wall and said, I got to do something different about my life. And I went on a journey. I had been a Christian for a while, but never really dived into the Word, and started reading the Bible, and God led me to books that helped me, and I had a great counselor that...
So through reading, you adapted?
Yes. Actually, it was through reading books, not necessarily going to counseling, but I just was directed to some great books to read, and they just really spoke to me. Mm-hmm. And 2 of the things that I really learned about my anger is that anger is driven from 2 emotions, either fear or hurt. Mm-hmm. And I never was taught how to express when I was hurt or when I was fearful, because being fearful to me was a weakness, so I didn't tell people I was afraid. I just got angry, and I didn't know how to tell people that I was hurt. So those were 2 emotions I really learned to identify, so that when I started feeling that anger coming up, I stopped and said, why am I getting angry? Mm-hmm. And so once I started identifying it, I started being able to deal with it.
And getting back to adversity, were you raised in a middle class, lower class, upper class home?
I would say more in a, not necessarily lower class, but right at the cusp of, lower class at going into the middle. Although we never really had anything, but I didn't feel like I was really poor. So
Right. When you think of adversity, what do you think is the greatest challenge for somebody that's starting out their 20s or freshly out of college?
their greatest challenge is
Their
the lack,
greatest challenge.
the lack of perseverance.
So this resiliency, right?
Yes, you have to be resilient. You have to be persevering, and you got to have a goal you want to reach. Doesn't have to have a time frame. Like I just said, I've sewed since I was in middle school, and that seemed to be the love that I had. And I always thought that someday I want to have a business in this. And of course, raising kids as a single mom, it wasn't lucrative, but now I'm doing it. I'm 66 years old, going to be 66 years old, and never at any time did I think that I could not achieve my goal if I kept working at it.
And talking about resiliency, due to your resilience is the reason why you were able to overcome the anger that the fear and the past that you experienced when you were a child. Resiliency is often what drags us out of the adversity that we face, right?
Right.
I mean, I always say I'm like a cockroach. You're going to have to take me down, you know?
Yes.
You can't kill this guy.
Well, I think you make a choice. There's a point in time that I had to make a choice that I can either better myself or I can still live in this crap. And after 2 divorces, I felt pretty crappy about myself. I felt like I had really failed and failed my kids. And, that's Satan's tool to make you feel really unworthy. And I felt like if I could just overcome my obstacles, life could be different for me.
Right.
And I really feel like that 6-month journey that I was on, I overcame those obstacles. Now, am I saying I never get angry? Not often now. I'll get frustrated, but you don't see me mad. I don't think you kids have seen me that mad in a few years,
Right.
But I think you have to have the determination to look at yourself. And that's what's hard. I think people have a hard time looking at themselves and seeing their faults.
Yeah, because we don't, especially in today's culture, where in my last episode we talked about victimization.
Yes.
And when everybody's a victim, it's so hard to rise, right? Because this resiliency that we're talking about, in its absence, we are continually failing.
Yeah. Let me tell you an example. At the point that I had 5 children, and I was working overnight job. I was fortunate enough that,
How did you make those? How did you set up that schedule in order to raise the kids with that type of work schedule?
Well, actually, your oldest sister was 16 at the time, so she was raising the little ones. Quincy was a baby at the time, in fact. And so I worked nights, and she was in the house and kind of overseeing Quincy. Thankfully, Quincy slept all night.
Because Quincy was what, like 6
6
months
months.
old? Yeah,
6 months when I was working nights. And so I'd come home, get your kids up, get you ready for school and stuff. And then I would nap when Quincy would nap, and then I would take a nap later right before I went to work.
And what was your household medium income at that time?
Probably at that time I was making about $16,000 a year.
And what was the normal income at that time? Because that was what, in 93, 94?
Yeah, most people at that time were probably making, I'd say $25,000-$30,000 a year.
So $30,000 a year, you're making half of what everybody else is making, right?
Right.
But even on top of that, you were raising 5 kids.
That's right. And I wasn't on public assistance.
You weren't on public assistance.
Well, I got food stamps for a little while until I got on work. And this is what the caseworker told me one day. She says, I don't understand why you just don't quit your job. She says, you'd only get $50 less a month if you'd quit your job. And I looked at her and I said, I won't do that. I says, I'm setting an example for my kids that if you work hard, you can achieve what you want to do.
Right. And the problem, that exposes a problem with the welfare state, right? Is that it says that you can depend on the government to take care of you.
Right.
So
but what it does, what it does, the lie that's underneath all that is you become dependent on the government and you will never get out of the hole. Ever.
Exactly.
Because for every extra dime you make, they take it away.
Yep.
And you can become so dependent on those benefits that you can't rise above it. They want you to stay there.
Mm-hmm. And it provokes laziness.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Because I even questioned him one time. I says, if you tell me that the income for a mom of 5 kids should be, say, $22,000 a year to support them, and if I'm making 15, why can't you just fill in the gap? Why do I have to completely quit working, lower my self-worth because I'm not working and supporting my children? Why can't there be programs that fill in the gap between getting me from poverty to at least manageable?
Right.
But it can be done. We did it. We rarely had beef. We ate a lot of chicken. We ate a lot of pasta. We ate a lot of, not great food.
I remember hot dogs, corn, and potatoes.
Yeah, that was our hash.
I mean, that was like, what, $6 to feed like...
Yeah, I went a long ways.
5 or 6 of us at the time?
And we budgeted. If one of you kids come to me and say you need shoes, I set you kids down.
So what were some? So right now, I would say that we live in a very materialistic culture.
Yes.
What were some of the materialistic things that you felt at the time that you had to set aside in order to raise the kids without going towards government assistance?
Never had a new car, ever.
So you drove an old beater, huh?
Some beaters. Remember the van we drove that didn't have any heat and the windows were broke and didn't roll up during the winter and we just wrapped up in blankets?
Yes, I do remember that.
Yeah, so we didn't drive new cars. I didn't have new furniture. We didn't have salon haircuts. We didn't do nails and pedicures and all that kind of stuff.
And you sure didn't buy me Nike shoes.
No, we did not have Nike
shoes. Which I'm still upset about.
Well, too bad.
No, I'm kidding.
No, I know.
But there's a realistic side to that, right?
Right.
Is that in today's culture, we don't live according to our means.
No, we don't. And as you kids got older, I knew that peer pressure was there for you guys, that you can't have the Nike shoes or the whatever name brand clothes there was. So I made a deal with you. I had a budget of what your back to school budget was. And I'd tell you kids, if you buy Nike shoes, that's all you got for the school year. So you can decide whether you'd rather wear Nike shoes and wear rags for clothes or, it was your choice. As you got older and got part-time jobs, and I'd say, okay, this is what I'll give you, and you can meet me with the rest of it to buy your Nike shoes.
Mm-hmm.
And
to give my mom some clout here, per se.
Thank you.
Not a single one of us are really failures in life.
No, I don't believe so. Some of you struggled a little harder to get there, but you all have gotten there.
But how does this happen? Okay? How does this happen that 71% of those raised in a fatherless home, or as you being a single mother, drop out of high school? And how many of us graduated high school?
Every one of you.
Every single one of us.
Now, Brock got his GED.
Right.
But the rest of you.
But that was for extenuating circumstances. Yes. Those were his poor decision making, but it had nothing to do with your parenting style.
No, I don't believe so.
And was parenting always the greatest?
No. Heavens, no.
and I remember being 12 years old, right? And 2 years.
That's when you were good.
Yeah, I was a good kid, but I had 2 naughty sisters.
It was tough.
Yeah. And but I remember at that time, just with my experience, was emotional absence. Through that emotional absence, but then on the other side, I mean, I look at adversity. I think so often we look at adversity, and we talked about victimization. We look at adversity as it's something to hold me back. It's the reason why I'm where I'm at.
Right.
Instead of turning it into a positive perspective and saying, you know what, I experienced that, but how can I develop as a person so that doesn't hinder me and other people around me? How can I communicate it effectively?
I think that if you want your kids to learn how to persevere and achieve something in their life, you set the example for them. A mother can't be someone that just sits on her cell phone or watching TV and not paying attention to what her kids are doing.
Right.
I think that one thing I felt about is that I didn't understand the whole concept of college, but I would say, you have the option to go to college. I just can't pay for it. But I feel like if nothing else I did right, I believe I showed you kids hard work. And I don't feel that you kids felt like you were without.
Yeah. I never felt that I was without.
Yeah.
There were things, of course, that like I guess for me it was more of the acceptance of understanding and knowing where we were at financially, and that's all I was exposed to. I never got really nice things. So because I never got nice things, I didn't have an expectation to get nice things.
That's true. I didn't have nice things. You seen me without nice things.
Right.
You didn't get, so the expectation wasn't there. But you also knew that if we were tight, we didn't have cable. Cable got turned off. That was one of the first things I'd turn off was cable TV. That's a luxury to me.
Okay, so cable at that time was like the internet today, having Wi-Fi. Could you imagine shutting off your Wi-Fi just to get food on the table?
Yeah. I mean,
like, today's world, that probably wouldn't happen, though.
You know, and you know, my job, I deal with benevolence, people coming in and asking for assistance. And my first thing when I look at their financials, I'll say, well, we can cut this expense, we can cut this expense, we can cut this expense. And when I say cable, they go, oh, but I need my internet for applying for jobs. I'm sorry, no, you don't. We have a public library that has internet. Example, you know, to persevere, after my divorce, I decided that if I can't afford to maintain a car, I need to learn how to maintain a car. So I took 2 years of auto mechanics out at Butler, so I can learn to do my own oil.
So you're saying that you knew that you want to be able to fix the car.
Yeah, I couldn't afford to have my car fixed.
I want to make a point here. This is resilience right here. This is like... Yeah. I know my situation. I know what I need to prepare myself for so that when hard times come, I don't have to rely on anybody.
Right.
So I'm going to go take classes at a local college to learn how to work on my vehicle.
Exactly.
That's phenomenal. And how much did that class cost you?
Well, since I got a Pell Grant, nothing.
So you got a Pell Grant.
I didn't take out a loan.
And to look at it. So at that time it was probably like $80 a credit hour, $60 credit hour, something fairly cheap.
Fairly cheap.
But that credit hour, the amount of value that it added to you, like say if the alternator went out on the car, at least you had knowledge of how to fix it to prevent having to take it to the shop and making ends meet even tighter.
I have never been ripped off at an auto body shop because I go in there with them, telling them this is what I think is wrong with my car.
And I've said it on the live, I've said it on the podcast multiple times that my mom has like the best of both worlds, like the mom and the dad type mentality of that strength, right?
Yes.
But also the emotional support. And I think for that, it created a balance within all the kids, right?
I think so, yes. Because I don't think I raised wimpy boys.
Yeah.
I mean, my boys learned, and you know, I didn't raise wimpy girls. My boys changed diapers just as much as the girls changed diapers when I ran the daycare. I mean, you boys did housework just as much as you did yard work. And I have to admit, I don't think Daisha ever mowed a yard.
Yeah. I've never seen her behind a mower.
No. She's the type that would have paid somebody to do it, you know. But that's what I mean when you talk about resilient. You have to have a mindset that you want to rise above this. If you don't have a mindset, if you're lazy, you're going to be there 20 years from now.
Yeah.
You know, and I think today our culture, our society breeds that.
So through all of this, you know, you going through that divorce, at what point in being a single mother did you say, I got this? I got this. Did you ever feel like you didn't have it? I guess should be the first question.
Yes.
Did you ever overcome that?
I made hard decisions, you know, maybe not decisions that some people may not think were good decisions, but I made some hard decisions. And one of those is, you know, your twin sister was raised by your older sister her high school years. She lived with Bill and Daisha. I shouldn't say their names, but because I wasn't capable of dealing with her emotional outbursts and stuff.
And do you think, did that have to do with losing Caleb?
Yeah, I think so. Going through that grieving process, and, you know, and you said it yourself, the three of you were a handful sometimes, and I just didn't have the emotional stability to deal with her at the time, knowing that she was, and I love her to death, I do, but at the time she was going down a path that I knew was going to lead her to nowhere. And I felt like she needed that stronger hand that Bill could give her and the guidance that Daisha could, that I didn't have the energy to do. Mm-hmm. And that was a hard decision.
What about raising the first four?
The first four, there were challenges. Brock was kind of a handful. I mean, he just was.
Expand on that.
Well, at the time, him growing up, we didn't have any knowledge of ADD or ADHD.
Right.
I didn't learn anything about that until he was 16. Now, what that did for me, though, is, again, if somebody tells me my kid's got a problem, I'm going to read everything I can find about that problem so I know how to deal with that problem.
Right. But that also gave you some, say, when you went to the doctor, that you were going to fight for your kid.
Yes.
Because there will be oftentimes, not all the time, and I think oftentimes we overgeneralize all Medicare, medical systems, I mean, everything, the welfare state, every topic, we overly generalize it.
Yes.
But at sometimes there are doctors that are lazy and will just brush it aside and not focus on it. And but if you're an advocate.
You have to be an advocate for your kids. An advocate. For instance, learning about Brock made me prepared for when you were diagnosed. Mm-hmm. And because I knew what I knew, we never medicated you.
Right. Well, I got on medication
in high school.
In high school.
But you went all through grade school, middle school with no medication. But that was because I chose that because I didn't like what medication does. And so you needed to learn some coping skills because you were going to go in adult life. Do you want to live on Adderall all your life?
Hell no. And even when I was on it, here's the thing. Here's how it negatively affected me was, what was I doing? I was writing raps all the time.
Yes.
You remember my rapping stage? So I'm writing raps, I'm making music, and what wasn't I doing? I wasn't focusing on my schoolwork.
Right.
And because of that, I mean, I think I graduated high school with a 2.3 GPA.
But you graduated.
I graduated. I graduated high school with a 2.3 GPA. And where this conversation is going to go, we're going to come back to all of these things. Okay. But it's how I've developed since then, how you've developed since your experiences as a child, raising a child. What do you feel it has been your greatest success?
Wow. Well, I don't think my success has been in my ability to gain material things.
Right.
I feel like my greatest success is that I have 7 kids. Of course, Caleb's not here, but I believe in my heart that even though we have adversity in our family and we have disagreements and we're not all on the same page, but we have a unity. And I feel like that's my greatest success.
Is the family unit.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I'll tell a little bit about my story so that people kind of understand this. So you've just heard all about the upbringing. Mm-hmm. And graduating high school with 2.3 GPA, I went directly into working manufacturing for the following 5 years. And the moment I graduated high school, what did you say to me? You got 2 weeks.
You got 2 weeks. You either get a job or you enroll in school.
Exactly. And what did I not do? I didn't enroll in school. I had a job, but I was just like, screw this. I'm going to move out. Yep. And I moved in with a friend for probably like 2 or 3 months.
Yep.
And then within those 2 or 3 months, then I rented a house for my first time. Yep. And in that time, I also bought a car because I knew I had to establish my credit. Look, I didn't learn all these things in school. No, like I wanted a better life. I wanted a better life because of our life. Right. And this is nothing. Oftentimes somebody can look at that and be like, oh, that's a terrible thing to say in front of your mother. But isn't that what every parent wants for their kids, is that they have a better life? And
as a parent, I accept truth. I mean, I'm not shy to say I screwed up a lot, but I also know too that you can be honest with me when I'm being out of line. I mean, y'all call me out all the time. So, but I felt like that I had to push you out in order for you to stand up.
Exactly, because sometimes the tough love is what's needed.
Yes.
And at the time it felt like adversity. Like like me, I'm like, I'm going to rise above this. Let's go. Because I'm ready to fight. Let's go. And because of that, then a year later after I rented that house, I bought a house. Right. So now I'm 20 years old. I bought a house. I'm working a full-time job, graduated high school with a 2.3 GPA, and it's nothing for me to boast about. Okay. It's something to be proud of course, but it's not to be boastful talking about this. It's to say you can rise above.
Yes.
But it takes this, it takes these, it takes hard work.
Yeah.
It takes strong emotions.
Yes.
It takes a mentality of taking negativity and turning it into positivity.
Yes, but I also think too, and I'm going to plug this, but my relationship that I had with the Lord was where my joy was. Mm-hmm. And so even though I was angry a lot, and even though I struggled a lot, I knew deep in my heart my joy was in the Lord, that if I could just stay focused on my relationship with the Lord, this today is going to pass, and tomorrow's a new day.
Right.
And we grew up with a lot of humor in the house, even though we had a lot of
and now that displays itself in dark humor.
Yes. Yes. And sometimes one of us might be the butt of the joke, but
right.
Yes, but we did have humor.
Right.
So, and I just feel like, I think that the thing that I struggled with was that because I did both man and woman in the household, that I lacked maybe giving more emotional stability than I did life skill stability. But the mentality of hanging tough, and we're going to push through, and we're going to get this done, and we're going to work together. I mean, remember how many years we clean a building on the weekends to make ends meet.
Yeah.
But we did that as a team a lot,
And I'm going to say this: it's like copious amounts of energy to put that in to do that. So many people, even while they're single, like me, sometimes I'm very lazy.
Yeah.
Not necessarily because I want to be, but it's because I don't have much to do. So I have to motivate myself to do something. I could take 2 days off of work and sit in the house all day. So the amount of energy that it took for you as a single mother to make ends meet, to say, you know what, I know I'm not making that much money, but I know I got to put food on the table. So I'm going to show up on my weekend off, and I'm going to clean a building, and I'm gonna bring all these little rascals with me to make them clean.
Hey, you know what? Caleb was, no, you guys were little. Y'all can get the trash can and bring the trash to the door. You can push the sweeper around. I taught you those things.
Right.
Now I did take care of the bathrooms most of the time for you, but no, I felt like that, this is a team effort. We're a family. And if you want to eat, help me get you to eat, if you want new shoes, well, help earn those new shoes.
Right.
But I kept a clean house because I forced myself to have that for you kids.
Right.
I didn't go to bed until midnight lots of times, but that's just my mentality. I knew that in order for you kids to ever be successful or even rise above where I was at in my life, was I had to persevere through being exhausted, persevere through emotional loneliness, emotional anger, there was a lot of emotions that I dealt with, but I knew for you to be successful that I had to push harder.
Right. And so with adversity comes, well, how do you define success?
Well, I don't find success in material things so much as, your life. Are you happy? Are you joyful? Which joy comes from inside anyway. It's not from your exterior things, but how do you treat other people is another thing. I think that there's a lot of joy that comes in how you treat other people. I didn't buy my first house until I was, how old was I? 52, I think.
Yeah.
So it took me that long before I stepped up and said, okay, I think I can buy a house now. And what did I buy? I bought a small little 1-bathroom, 3-bedroom house with still 3 kids at home. Everybody said, you only have 1 bathroom?
So what advice would you give to a single mother that may be struggling financially?
Well, one of the things I'd like to tell them is that get a job. Just get a job. Figure it out. Resource. Now, personally, my best resource was my church family. You know, they were a strength for me, and sometimes they filled in gaps for me when I needed a babysitter or if I needed this or that. They did a lot there, but you have to find the resources, build you a network, and tap into your talents. You know, I knew that I had a good talents of organizing and cleaning. I also have a talent to sew. I have a talent to cook. I sold pies. I sold cookies. I sold.
You did whatever it took.
Yeah, I did whatever it took.
Right.
You know.
What would be some other ways to develop that network, that support group for you as a single parent today?
Today,
you already said church. So what else?
Church. There's tons of groups out there in the community. Get involved in a community. If you love pets, then volunteer at the shelter or get involved with an animal group. If you find what you love and put yourself into it,
right,
and you're going to build yourself a network of people that are going to be there for you.
And that's putting yourself out there, and it's hard to put yourself out there in those situations. You're
going
to wake up certain days, and you're going to feel like, I don't want to go to that group tonight. I don't want to do that.
Right.
But if you develop the resiliency that we were talking about earlier, you're going to be able to have some solutions that come out of a situation like that. Right. And I mean, I think of this myself in that going online. Like we have a phenomenal resource. A lot of times people are like, oh, the internet's like evil. You know, really?
No.
The internet is like freedom at its essence. I mean, you take out all of the censorship, but at its essence is freedom to develop a community.
Well, right. But it's not any different than any other thing we put in our lives. It all takes moderation. You got to still have discipline and knowing, okay, it's time to turn off the TV because I got to get my house clean or cook dinner. I got to turn off the internet so I can do what I should be doing. It takes discipline.
Right.
So, you know, that's just part of the perseverance is when you decide that I got to put this aside so I can do this because it's more important. But there are groups. I mean, I realize we're in the technology world today. But you can find support through groups on Facebook. You can Google anything you want to know today. Heaven forbid, if the Google was available to me 40 years ago, I wouldn't have had to read all them darn books.
Right.
I could have read it on the internet and gone. But I had to read 3 chapters before I got my answer, you know?
Yeah.
So, but I think that people don't want to put in the work. You know, they don't want to put themselves out there. And also, when you join that group or you find those people, don't be a victim. Don't be a whiner. You know, very few people even knew that I was a single mom sometimes. In fact, I can never forget the choir teacher at the church that we were attending was shocked when he learned I had 7 kids because he'd only seen three with me. And I just looked at him. I go, well, I keep the other 4 in the closet when I can't bring them all, you know, kind of thing. But what I'm saying is that I didn't tell people my situation. I just went in and was me and shared who I was, not my situation. Even after Caleb passed away, I never introduced myself as, I'm Kim, I lost a son.
So let's get into that a little bit deeper. Okay. Why do you find it so important that you aren't a victim? Like, what does that say to that other person?
I'm a victim and that's my identity, and it's not. Would
you say that it also says to them that it's okay for you to be a victim?
True, because generally what you portray or put out, you're going to get back. So if, say I go into a room and they say introduce, and I get up and I do, hi, I'm Kim Maddern, and I've been a single mom, and I'm really struggling financially, and I've lost a son, and this has happened, and my car's not running, and blah, 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 just vomit all over them. What do you think, what feedback am I going to get? I'm going to get all them other people out there, wham, 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 wham.
Right.
I don't want that in my life. I want people that encourage me to keep pushing. I want people in my life that encourage me to keep working harder. If I hit a roadblock, I want to know that person's going to say, okay, try this, or I'm sorry that happened to you. Come on, let's
Right.
let's keep going.
And I want to take a break real quick and address something for TikTok, for the people that will be listening on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts, is that it may seem that we are not talking about adversity right here. But what we're talking about is developing a better person inside yourself so that adversity comes,
Right.
The rise from adversity comes naturally.
Right.
So, yeah, we're not giving percentages. We're just being real in conversation about what's going on in our lives. How do we develop as an individual so that we can rise above?
Well, you know, one of the things that you're talking about, planning ahead, thinking ahead, how many people got the COVID money and put it in the right place?
Exactly.
What did you invest that money in?
Mm-hmm.
How many of you went out and bought new TVs? Not that you needed a new TV, but you wanted that new Apple Smart TV.
Yeah.
Or how many people went and had a $50 steak on it? Or, in my reality thinking, what I invested mine was into my home, to improving things in my home that I didn't have the money to do working my job.
Right.
So I put it into my home.
Because what you were doing, again, you were setting it up so that if I ever need to sell my home, I make more money off of it.
Exactly.
Or next time something bad happens, I already had it taken care of. So with that stimulus money that came out, you're like, well, I'm just reinvesting it into what my future is like.
Right.
Instead of just spending it on something stupid that doesn't add any value.
If you're living paycheck to paycheck and say you get a nice income tax money, don't live paycheck to paycheck. Put that in an account and draw a little bit at a time out to make ends meet so you're not going in the hole. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't understand. I don't want to sound really snarky here, but I don't understand people that live in a low income world that don't make plans, that doesn't have a plan.
And to be their advocate, would you say that they have resources to teach them that?
Yes.
Could you explain that?
One of the first classes maybe you need to take is budgeting.
Right.
Learning what is a need and what is a want.
Absolutely.
You know, and you would be surprised how many things are really on the want list and not on the need list.
Right. And I want to dig into this because this comes back to the way our culture is shaped. We are shaped in a culture of convenience. Instead of saving up for that car, you're thinking, oh, I'm going to get it today, so I'm going to go get a loan for it. And then that enslaves you to that debt. Right. And then so it's harder for you to come out of that. But because of your mentality is the reason why you're in that situation. It's not because government isn't providing you a way out of that situation. Culture is a lot. I want to word this properly. Yeah. Culture is shaping that mindset so that you want it. It's not government's fault. No. And often, like, we look at government like government is God. And by government, I'm not saying you do, but I'm saying in the general sense of culture, I think that oftentimes we view government as God. Mm-hmm. That he's going to take care of us. He's going to be there when we need it. When COVID happened and we needed the stimulus money, guess what? God's right there to give us the stimulus money.
The sad part about that, Levi, is that we have this expectation that they're going to do this. I learned when I went to Bolivia, I've taken 3 mission trips and went to Bolivia. And I can remember the day I was standing up on the second floor balcony of an orphanage that we were working in. And I looked down at those kids, and these kids are just dropped there because their parents died and there wasn't another family, or the parents couldn't support them, or there were all kinds of reasons why they were there. Some of them had families, but families couldn't afford to keep them. And I thought to myself, I live in the United States of America, and I don't have to worry about this.
Yeah.
Yes. My government provides health care for my kids if I need it. The government provides me food stamps if I need it. The government provides me with low-income housing if I need it. My government does these things, but we take advantage of them and abuse it to the point that it has become a corruption in our society.
Absolutely.
You know, and that's the sad part about it is those programs were only developed many years ago to get you over the hump to the next place, not to live there.
Absolutely.
You know, and that's where our fault of our government has been, that they don't have a tapping out kind of thing. They don't have a place of saying, okay, we're going to get you from here to there, but once you're there.
Because what that develops is personal responsibility.
Yes.
Right? To say, hey, you know what? I don't want to be in that situation again. So here's the plans that I'm going to make. So we were talking about being raised in that low income home and somebody saying, well, because of my adversity, I can't get out of this situation. Right? Mm-hmm. Why do you think they have that mentality beyond just the cultural side there? Maybe I'm just kind of getting, I'm kind of backtracking here and I'm kind of losing my spot.
Well, I think it's a number of things. Home life has something to do with it. If it's statistically, and I don't know statistics, but they do say that if you're raised in a home of welfare mentality, you will go into adult life with a welfare mentality. And that's one thing I've got to say about my parents. They were hardworking people. Mm-hmm. You know, so I did get that worth ethic from my parents because both of them were very hardworking people. And my mom was adamant about not doing welfare. Mm. You know, that was a shame. Back then, that was a shame to be on welfare. You know, so...
and now people will run down the street and brag about it, right?
Yeah, you know. I think that, and like I said, you know, the government keeps giving more and more handouts. Well, that gives them more and more reason not to work, not to try. We are at our core lazy people. Mm-hmm. That's just our sin nature.
Right.
We're just lazy people. Mm-hmm. You know, so it's really
comes back to mentality. Saying, today I'm going to wake up and I'm going to bust my tail.
Yes. Today I'm going to do something different. If it's just one step at a time, do something different.
Right.
You know, and today, I don't understand it. There are jobs out there and people don't want to work. Mm-hmm. People don't work.
And I think it comes back to all this, in my opinion, culture. But there's also the Christian perspective here of how Satan has developed our culture to the point where we accept where this is at, right?
Yeah.
We accept the welfare. We accept being taken care of. I mean, what is it? I believe it's in Romans. No, it's in James. He says that a lazy man shall not eat.
Right. Man, don't work, you don't eat.
Exactly.
Now, there's a difference because there is a balance there because the scripture also says we take care of our widowers and our fatherless.
Talking about the church.
Yes. The church takes care of them, not the government.
Exactly.
You know, and we should take care of them. And so you have to find that balance because where are those that have no other options? Because there's people that's going to have disabilities. There's people that's got obstacles that are beyond their control, that they need that assistance and they need our help to provide those spots. But then there's those people that take and take and take and never get back. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that I didn't get assistance at times across all those years. I mean, how many years was I raising kids?
I don't know. Like 40?
No, it was close to 35 years. Yeah. I mean, by the time you kids left home, Brock was the oldest, and he was probably about 35.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm not saying that I didn't use that, but I always used it with the mentality of this is going to get me from here to there. It's going to hold me over until I can get to this point. Mm-hmm. You know, and people don't look at it that way. I really, it saddens me because we have a culture of entitlement now. We have a culture of, it's too hard, I don't want to work that hard. You know, and...
So what would be some advice you would give for a single parent to raise their kids where they don't have a sense of entitlement?
Don't give them everything.
Yeah.
I can really get on a roll about this.
Go for it.
You know, I mean, you only have 7 days a week. You don't need 100 outfits.
Right.
You know, you only have one pair of feet. You don't need 20 pairs of shoes. You know, I am shocked, to be honest with you, even today, that kids in grade school have cell phones.
Yeah.
I am shocked today.
But to be an advocate here again, the argument would be that, well, she needs it because she needs to call me when she gets out of school. Or for her safety, what if something happens?
Statistically speaking, how often does that happen?
Hey, we live in our mindsets set on the minority of situations.
Right. I mean, I can't imagine if I had that mindset with you kids that every time, oh my gosh,
Like, what if?
what if I didn't live in that what if? I didn't have the luxury to live in what if.
Right.
I had the luxury of this is reality.
So we could almost say being materialistic has almost developed that.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, I agree. I mean, it's pathetic to me that I go out to the high school and kids are driving newer cars than I am.
Right.
Or even their parents. I don't get that. That is further, give them an old clunkers for their first car because they're going to wreck it.
Exactly.
They're going to wreck every first car.
To give myself some credit here, I did not wreck a car.
Yeah, you're the only one.
Yeah. Well,
every one of my kids did, but I didn't buy a car for none of you. For none of you, because I knew you were going to wreck them. But the point is what I'm saying is that we think, poor Levi, I don't want him to grow up without the things that I didn't have when I was a kid. So I'm going to make sure he has those things.
Right.
And we become we develop a monster in our child.
Because we're being their friend and not their parent.
Right. And give me. Mm-hmm. I want.
And so I think that this is where victimization culture really is predicated off of, is the way we're raised in our home. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily the schools, it's not the government that's promoting it. It's how we raise our children.
Yeah.
And especially, I can't imagine if I would have had an active father. I mean, I had grandpa, but let's say I had an active father in the home every night when I went to bed, blah, 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 blah. Anytime that I felt upset because there were two girls in the home and just my mom, how I could turn to a man and talk about situations. Mm-hmm. Like how important it would have been to have had a man in my life like that. So with that being said, developing and overcoming this critical issue of rising from adversity is going to be predicated on upbringing. Yes.
I truly believe it starts at the home. Most of our social problems starts in the home. I mean, we're not going to resolve anything until our homes get better.
Absolutely.
And that doesn't mean it has to be a two-parent family. That is the idea. Not happening in today's world, but that doesn't mean that you can't be a better person to raise your kids up differently. Break the cycle. If you've had poverty in your background, break the cycle. One thing I could be proud about today, even though it irritates me, is that every one of you kids make more money than I do.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah. Maybe Brock not, but every one of you kids, though, technically make more money than I do.
Right.
Yeah. And I think,
but it comes back to resiliency, right?
Right. I'm proud of that. I'm thrilled about that because now I know I've got kids that are going to take care of me when I'm old. But yeah, I feel like that was a success in raising you kids. Right. Is that you all achieved to do better.
Absolutely. Well, I think we should wrap up adversity.
Okay.
And like I said, to everybody on TikTok right now, if you're jumping in and jumping out, you may not be following the conversation quite to what the level we're talking about this, because we're getting into life experiences about the way our mind develops to develop resiliency to rise from adversity.
Yes. And I can honestly say there's not a whole lot in my past that I haven't dealt with. Mm-hmm.
So deal with it.
Yeah, deal with it. Do what you have to do.
I mean, that sounds harsh, right?
Yeah.
That sounds harsh. You got to deal with your crap.
Yeah, deal with it. Don't shove it underneath the rug. It ain't going to go nowhere. It's just going to be a big hairball over in the corner.
Right.
It's not going to go anywhere. So deal with the things that are obstructing your ability to grow.
Yeah, what if you don't do the dishes? The dishes are going to pile up.
Yeah, and then you get maggots.
Right. So you gotta figure out a way
Yes. Get up off the couch and move. You know, I might be a heavy-set girl, but I move.
Right. Oh, yeah, you do. I bet you could run faster than some of the people on
Well, I
TikTok.
doubt if I could run, but I could walk. No, I mean, I'm still very active, you know, and I still take care of my yard and I still take care of my house. And, you know, but what I'm saying is you can't succumb to poor me.
Mm-hmm.
I just knew, I don't know actually where I got that, except that I seen my parents work hard. And I just had this mentality. I can remember when I was even in foster care.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want my life to be like this forever.
Right.
And I got to figure out how to do something different.
Exactly.
You know, and I know that my mom had some emotional stuff. I know my dad had some emotional stuff. And that was part of my curing too, is that I dived into their background. I looked into where they were raised and how they were raised and what created them to be who they were.
And this is what's so important about ourselves.
Yes.
To understand about ourselves.
Understand.
Why am I this way?
Yeah. And I knew that the things that my parents couldn't do for me emotionally, psychologically, I had to do different for my kids. You know, and I was able to forgive my parents, and that was a big deal thing. Yes.
Self-reflection develops self-discipline.
Yes. Yes.
Because you know.
Yeah. Because I know.
Anything else you want to say?
You know.
Any last words?
Last words. I don't know how I would have done life without the Lord Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
I don't.
Yep.
I mean, there were many nights I cried, and many times the Lord came through. Many times.
Did he ever tell you no?
Did he ever tell me no? Yes. but you know, you have to stop and think. When I think about the times that the Lord told me no, it was for my better good. So yeah, he told me no a lot because I had a lot of demands.
Absolutely.
You know, but you know, when I look back, I know that I grew from every one of those things that I had to overcome. I grew into a better person. I like who I am today. I don't have that self-worth issues that I used to have and carry during my 20s, 30s, 40s. Mm-hmm. Now most people say, I don't really care. Well, I do care. It's just that I know who I am now, and I don't have to answer those things that beat me down.
Absolutely. Okay, well, everybody, that is all we have for tonight, talking about adversity. Again, this is my mother, Kim Maddern. I am Levi Brickley, and this is the Veritas 21 podcast. If you guys are watching on TikTok right now, go check it out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. This will be distributed across 9 different platforms. And for the people that do check it out on Apple Podcasts, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts as it increases the analytics. So, y'all, thank you very much for tuning in. Stay safe. May grace be with you.